The crystal chandeliers cast dancing shadows across the marble floor as Chicago's elite celebrated another extravagant evening. Marcus Wellington, the city's youngest tech billionaire, surveyed his private showroom with satisfaction. His prized red Ferrari gleamed under the spotlights, the centerpiece of tonight's exclusive gathering. The winter wind howled outside, rattling the glass doors. Through the storm, a figure emerged from the darkness. An elderly black man stepped into the warmth, his weathered hands trembling as he pulled his tattered coat tighter. Snow melted from his gray beard, forming small puddles on the pristine floor. The laughter died instantly. Designer gowns rustled as guests turned to stare. Whispers filled the air like poison. "Security must be drunk," someone muttered. "Look at those rags," a woman in diamond sneered. The old man clutched a small cloth bundle against his chest, his eyes searching for somewhere to hide from the sudden attention. He had only wanted shelter from the brutal cold, drawn by the warm lights and distant music. Instead, he found himself trapped in a den of wolves. Marcus stepped forward, his perfectly tailored tuxedo reflecting his arrogance. This was his kingdom, his rules. The crowd parted before him like subjects before their king. "Well, well," Marcus announced, his voice carrying across the silent room. "It seems we have a gatecrasher." The old man's shoulders sagged, but he didn't run. Years of hardship had taught him that dignity was the last thing poverty couldn't steal. He stood his ground, even as every face in the room looked at him with disgust and amusement. Marcus circled the old man, like a predator studying its prey. The guests formed a wider circle, smartphones already recording what promised to be tonight's entertainment. The warmth that had drawn the stranger inside now felt suffocating under their collective gaze. "Tell me, old-timer," Marcus drawled, his voice dripping with mock concern. "Are you lost? The soup kitchen is 6 blocks down." Cruel laughter erupted from the crowd. A man in a bow tie raised his champagne glass. "Maybe he's the new valet." "Careful," another guest called out. "He might drip on the Italian leather." The old man's jaw tightened, but he remained silent. His eyes briefly flickered toward the Ferrari, and something shifted in his expression. Not envy or desire, but recognition. A spark that went unnoticed by everyone except Marcus. "Oh, you like my car?" Marcus purred, moving to stand beside his beloved Ferrari. He ran his manicured hand along the sleek hood. "This beauty costs more than most people make in a lifetime. $700,000 of pure engineering perfection." The crowd murmured appreciatively. They knew the price, had heard Marcus boast about it countless times. But seeing it through the eyes of someone who clearly had nothing made the number feel even more impressive. "I bet you've never even seen one up close before," Marcus continued, his cruelty growing with each laugh from his audience. "Probably think it runs on regular gas like some beat-up truck." The old man's knuckles whitened around his cloth bundle. 30 years of building dreams for rich men who never bothered to learn his name. 30 years of watching his creations roar to life under other people's hands while he remained invisible. But tonight, something was different. Tonight, his silence carried weight. Marcus's confidence swelled with each cruel laugh from his guests. This was better than any expensive entertainment he could have hired. The old man's quiet dignity only made the humiliation more delicious. "You know what?" Marcus announced, spreading his arms wide like a ringmaster. "I'm feeling generous tonight. Let's make this interesting." He walked to the Ferrari and patted its hood possessively. "If you can start this car, old man, I'll give it to you. Right here, right now." The crowd exploded in delighted gasps and applause. This was unprecedented, even for Marcus's standards of cruelty. Someone shouted, "He doesn't even know which end is the front." "He'll probably try to put a key in the door," another guest cackled. Marcus reached into his jacket and produced the sleek key fob, dangling it like a carrot before a starving horse. "Here's the catch, though. This isn't some old pickup truck. This is a sophisticated machine. One wrong move, and you'll embarrass yourself in front of everyone here." The old man stared at the key fob, then at Marcus, then at the Ferrari. The crowd held its breath, cameras ready to capture his inevitable failure. They expected him to back down, to shuffle away in shame, admitting he was out of his league. Instead, he stepped forward. His weathered hand reached out, not frantically or desperately, but with steady purpose. When his fingers closed around the key fob, Marcus felt a flicker of unease. There was something in the old man's touch, something that spoke of familiarity. "Last chance to walk away," Marcus taunted, but his voice had lost some of its earlier confidence. "Save yourself the humiliation." The old man looked up, his eyes meeting Marcus's for the first time. In that gaze, Marcus saw not fear or desperation, but quiet certainty. The game was about to change. The old man approached the Ferrari with reverent steps. His calloused hands traced the door handle with unexpected gentleness, as if greeting an old friend. The crowd pressed closer, expecting fumbling confusion, preparing to feast on his failure. He slid into the driver's seat with fluid grace that silenced the first few snickers. His weathered fingers found the seat adjustment without searching, positioning himself with the precision of someone who had done this 1,000 times before. "Lucky guess," someone whispered nervously, but there was nothing lucky about the way he checked the mirrors, tested the pedals, or held the key fob. These weren't the movements of a man guessing his way through unfamiliar territory. These were the practiced motions of a master craftsman returning to his element. The crowd's laughter faded to uncertain murmurs. Even Marcus felt sweat beading on his forehead despite the air conditioning. The old man pressed the ignition button. The Ferrari erupted to life with a thunderous roar that shook the crystal glasses and made the chandeliers tremble. But more shocking than the sound was the old man's reaction to it. He didn't jump or startle. Instead, he closed his eyes and smiled, listening to the engine's rhythm like a conductor hearing his orchestra play a perfect symphony. The crowd stood frozen, their mocking expressions replaced by confusion and dawning realization. This wasn't the first time this man had awakened such a beast. After a long moment, he turned off the engine. The sudden silence felt deafening. He stepped out of the car with the same quiet dignity he had maintained throughout the evening, but now something had fundamentally shifted in the room's atmosphere. Marcus's face had gone pale. The key fob trembled in the old man's outstretched hand as he offered it back. The hunter had just realized he was facing a lion, not a lamb. The old man's voice, when it finally came, carried the weight of decades and the quiet authority of someone who had earned his right to speak. "My name is Samuel Hayes," he said, his words cutting through the thick silence. "For 30 years, I was the chief engineer at Rossi Automotive in Detroit. I designed the engine that powers this car." The revelation hit the room like a physical blow. Gasps echoed off the marble walls. Someone dropped their champagne glass, the crystal shattering on the floor with a sound like breaking dreams. Marcus's mouth opened and closed wordlessly. His perfect world, built on assumptions and arrogance, crumbled around him. "I built engines for men like you," Samuel continued, his voice growing stronger. "Men who saw the machines, but never the hands that created them. Men who measured worth by what they owned, not what they contributed." He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of guests who could no longer meet his gaze. "You mock me for having nothing, but I gave you everything you celebrate. Every roar of that engine is my voice. Every smooth acceleration is my heartbeat." Samuel tightened his grip on his cloth bundle and turned toward the exit. "Keep your car, Mr. Wellington. I already owned it long before you wrote the check. What you can't buy is the respect you lost tonight, or the dignity you threw away for cheap entertainment." As he walked toward the door, the crowd parted before him like subjects before their true king. The man they had dismissed as worthless had just revealed himself as the creator of their most prized possession. At the threshold, Samuel paused. "I came here seeking warmth on a cold night. Instead, I reminded myself why I chose to walk away from your world years ago." The door closed behind him with a soft click that sounded like thunder in the silent room. Marcus stood alone beside his Ferrari, surrounded by his wealth and his guests, but feeling smaller than he ever had in his life. The car that had been his pride now felt like a shame, its engine silent, but somehow still echoing with the voice of the man who had given it life.